Before the video starts, make sure to watch the previous part to understand this part. Previous part link in the description. Let's begin. Jacksongord enters the castle threatening the Black Giant to show himself so he can avenge Berkeley's death, but the very next step Jacksongord takes makes him realize he has entered a trap. A sudden illumination of the magic being casted. The magic is the barrier magic that restricts the power of anyone entering the barrier. Jacksongord notices the many familiar faces of sword hires and Magians too standing against him, making him realize that the rebellion is much more massive than what Kelteron told them. Keller panics about the situation, but Jacksongord is unfazed and tells him that he's dealt with numerous of such situations and can handle this as well. Jacksongord then grins at Keller that this barrier magic is harder to deal with from the inside but easier to break from the outside, and then commands the Black Lion Knights to break the barrier, but his eyes go wide in shock, leaving half his command unsaid, when he completely turns to see his knights not behind him. Even Keller is left dumbfounded upon not seeing Ravel and Joldarin behind them. Keller exclaims in question if they've been traitors right from the beginning, but Jacksongord's face is shocked at another sight. He witnesses a nervous Keltron hiding in one of the tours and witnessing all this. Jacksongord clenches his teeth and shouts about his audacity with so much wrath that his veins pop out, and even though expecting this, Keltron jumps back in fear at this. An amused Sihan lightly laughs at this and Keltron whines about why he had to be here, to which Sihan casually tells him that he wanted to see Keltron's will against Jacksongord to properly trust him. He then appreciates Keltron on his plan of luring Jacksongord there. Keltron adds that Zeon's good acting skills also played a major role in keeping it all smooth, and how his ideology is to trap the tiger in order to hunt him rather than going to its den to get eaten. Now calmed, Keltron feels proud at his plan. Keller warns the traitors to give up in order to be forgiven on their audacity to betray the king, but the opponents are even more pissed at him being all arrogant even in this situation. The Magians exclaim in denial of considering him their king and cast a lightning strike spell to burn them alive. The all talk. Keller has no traces left of him at this magic, but of course it's not that simple to defeat Jacksongord, yet the rebels are shocked at Jacksongord unharmed and dodging the spell so easily. Jacksongord realizes that this level of power can only come from an ivory tower Magion and questions if it's Lilstein or Karen behind all this. The front man in the rebels mocks Jacksongord of having the thought of this coming from an outsider, when it's a simple fact that people got tired of his dictatorship and want to get rid of him. He mocks him about them fighting for the same reason as he fought for 10 years ago. Jacksongord is blank at this, still convinced that he's been a good leader, and shows disappointment at the familiar faces for backstabbing him as a result of his kindness. This nonchalant attitude irks the rebels even more and decide to strike him, calling him a worthless captain to them who thinks he owns them. Jacksongord is ready to face them even though annoyed since he can't use all his powers to end them there and then. Sihan is getting amused greatly at the situation of Jacksongord and praises the dragon trap barrier, making him praise Keltron once again for being able to hire someone even from the ivory tower. Keltron also agrees he didn't think it would work, but Magion Trendon agreed very easily. Sihan ponders over it, knowing the ivory tower must be having something in mind with this. Keltron shows remorse at the fact that some information about their coup d'etat already leaked, but Sihan is calm knowing that in situations like these, information is bound to get leaked, especially in approaches like that of the ivory tower, so they can't really do anything about this. Keltron calls Jacksongord stupid over not noticing such details, but after a pause he adds that it's understandable for him not to. His eyes shine while further adding how he was in charge of all that information, once again surprising Sihan. But Keltron is satisfied that this also makes it feasible for them to get rid of Jacksongord. On the other hand, Jacksongord is extremely frustrated at the situation where he's actually getting hurt by the attacks of the soldiers that he can so easily defeat if not the barrier, and wants to get rid of it. He exclaims, warning the rebellions to get rid of the barrier once last time. Also, quick reminder as we are going through the recap, if you are new to the channel, around 52% of viewers are watching are not already subscribed, and if that's you and you want to guarantee you're always up to date with all good content like this, so feel free to hit that subscribe button and join us on the road to 1 million subs. And if you enjoy the video or if you found it interesting, let me know by dropping a like and comment on it as well, would be seriously appreciated. Let's continue. Jacksongord's father-in-law, Duke Chromaton screams at the knights on creating havoc and threatens them with his status of being the king's relative, and how everyone should kneel and beg for his forgiveness, but this proves to be the wrong statement for him as the knights pull their swords out against him for the sake of the future of their nation, ready to get rid of a now scared Chromaton. Some of the Black Lion Knights march against Ains, but he stops them, telling them he's not betraying his father, but trying to get rid of the people who are tempting his father to the wrong side, so there's no point in fighting. The knights agree to wait for the king to get back, to which Ains smiles at them on avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. Ains thinks to himself of succeeding in maintaining peace in the palace, but there's still some part left to this battle. He puts his hopes on Keltrin's plan for the rest of the win, hoping for things to go as planned. Jexengord feels tired for not being able to use his complete strength. He swears at his opponents for trying to be against his own owner. They fight back with words too, telling him he is undeserving of the title of the king, revealing they are working under the command of Prince Ains now. Jexengord receives another shock of the day, realizing his own blood betrayed him, but of course it's not just his own son, but his most trusted person, Keltrin, and all the people who sworn loyalty to him. He's been betrayed FRPM all places at once, and this manages to anger him enough to decide to kill every single one of the traitors ready to break free from this spell. Sihan is once again amused at the anger as he's seeing a traitor getting mad at being betrayed. Even though knowing it's petty to feel good about the situation, Sihan still feels satisfied at what's unfolding. He wishes for Jexengord to try harder to break free, since he doesn't want his revenge through Persona people but himself. The soldiers are still convinced they can defeat Jexengord with the barrier spell, serving as the last straw to Jexengord's anger, who manages to create his hand of a giant, breaking out of the spell and trapping the enemy soldiers. But Xion timely remembers Sihan's words of guidance when dealing with a hand of a giant. He knows that the weakness of the giant hand lies at the wrist, which is connected to the earth, so he breaks that pulse before Jexengord can close his fist and kill all those trapped in it. Jexengord, with the darkest expressions and eyes shining in anger, praises the black giant, Xion, of pulling this impressive move, mocking him of considering him just a bait in all this plan. Everyone else panics at Jexengord escaping the barrier. Jexengord expresses his anger and disappointment since he desperately wants to finish all those traitors, but feels tired due to the barrier, so can't take his revenge at the moment. He threatens them to be ready for their death once he gets back to get rid of them. The rebellion army feels frightened and nervous at the threat and try to catch Jexengord before he GRTS away, but of course they fail at doing so. Jexengord feels utterly humiliated at the situation that went down and at the fact that he's running away at the moment. He's annoyed and determined to get back at every single person back there. The Magians panic in front of Keltrin about Jexengord getting away and them missing an opportunity that they could have only gotten once, but Keltrin is extremely calm and composed at the situation, and tells them not to worry as everything is still going just as they planned it to go. He reasons them that he's still our king and the situation can get problematic if a lot of people witness him being killed. He consoles them that Sean Stein, the disciple, has already went after him and Jexengord would simply disappear in the middle of nowhere with not even a single trace left of even his body. This way, Terranor will only remember him with his evil and failed rule and won't again be labeled as a hero. The True are flabbergasted at the confident words of Keltrin, not being able to comprehend how his confidence makes them completely trust his words. They all decide to go back to Prince Ains for further discussion about the matter at hand. A flashback shows a young Jexengord with a few people behind him staring at young Lilstein and Sihan questioning them who they are. Sihan asks if he's the leader here while a quiet Lilstein stand behind looking nervous. Even though Jexengord stands in front of them with a big axe, Sihan stands confident against him while Lilstein panics about only them two being against those bulky looking guys, to which Sihan huffs at him, mocking him for being a 6th floor Magion and being scared in front of a few bandits. Lilstein counters it as being nervousness. Sihan mocks him for acting like a kid when he's not, while Lilstein asks about the exact opposite, about Sihan being a kid yet so fearless. Jexengord stands there bemused at the two just bantering on their own in his place, but he realizes what's more concerning is his fellows calling them bandits and ending up bringing people back at their base. Those guys, scared of Jexengord, try to explain that they tried their best, but the opponent was a sword higher. Sihan, witnessing all this, casually asks Jexengord that his subordinates took a good amount of their stuff, which he wants to know if they'll be returning it anytime soon. Jexengord smiles at this, stating the obvious fact of not stealing the stuff in the first place, if they had any plan of returning it back. He challenges Sihon to try and take it by force if he wants, showing off his fighting energy, while Sihon, already expecting this, shows his plans of doing exactly that by fighting it back right away. Jacksongord is surprised at the energy he faces from Sihon, sure that he is almost a master rank sword higher. On the other hand, Sihon is also impressed by the strength coming from Jacksongord. They both have a pretty strong face-off, ending up being highly impressed by each other. They both exchange names, and Sihon tells him he's wasting his strengths on thievery, and how he wasn't expecting to meet someone with this much ability in a place like these. Jacksongord listens to him with focus, while Sihon happily offers if he wants to accomplish greater things in life. A tired Jacksongord wakes up from this dream, seeing the sun has settled and it's night already. He's relieved at feeling better and being able to get rid of the people chasing him. He thought he'd forgotten the route to his old base, but he didn't expect to reach his old hideout with such ease, since he'd abandoned this place long before the revolutionary era. He sighs, knowing that even if a large search party has been searching for them, they won't be able to reach this place or expect him to be hiding here. This benefit helped him get some rest, which suddenly awakens his anger, wanting to return to Laytoncell and get his revenge. He feels determined to have those traitors beg for their lives in front of him, but is suddenly disturbed out of his thoughts when he heard some creaking from nearby. He's alarmed at someone approaching him and just cannot fathom how the search squad would have been able to find him in a place like this. Then again, Jacksongord thinks of this as a perfect moment to take out his pent-up anger. He gets ready to face whatever comes at him, not at all expecting what actually is coming at him. Jacksongord screams he's gonna pay the person the price of betrayal, when he's cut off by someone mentioning the irony of his words, telling him he wants to use the exact same words to him. Jacksongord sees a familiar shadow in the dark. His eyes go wide when he sees the familiarity in the person in front of him. Sihon and Alita walk from the tress into his sight, making him recall the situation of Lilstein and Sihon walking into his sight, the same way in his dream. Seeing his face clearly, he almost cannot believe the reality, while Sihon greets his former friend, who's too shocked to react at the moment. Jacksongord has a hard time in wording the phrase, "How did he get back?" while an impatient Sihon cuts him off, angrily asking if he's surprised that he managed to get back after the way they sent him back to the other world. He shouts how is that all he would like to say to a friend he hasn't met in a decade, while Jacksongord only looks at Sihon, venting with almost a blank expression when Sihon, not being able to control anymore, strikes an attack at Jacksongord. Jacksongord dodges it at the right moment, now perfectly sure that it indeed is Sung Sihon. This time he manages to ask that he really managed to get back, to which Sihon clenches his teeth that indeed he is back and strikes at Jacksongord once again. Jacksongord has a hard time defending himself, but finally does manage to counter his attack. He is now composed about the situation and talks about how Lilstein and Saffron were sure he won't be able to get back, to which Sihon agrees that indeed it wasn't easy for him to get back, but what they made him go through was enough motivation for him to not give up. Jacksongord is amused and mentions how this proves that the Magians aren't always right. Jacksongord then talks about how this big of a rebellion felt really strange to him, but knowing that Sihon was involved at the base of all this connects all the dots. He questions if it was his plan to have all the events conclude to them reaching this place, since Sihon's also one of the people who is too familiar with this place. Sihon huffs, mocking Jacksongord about not being as stupid as he thought of him, to which Jacksongord grins. With clarity of what's happening now, he is ready to face the otherworldly savior who has returned to get his revenge. He faces Sihon, telling him he won't be making any excuses about what he did, nor does he intend on begging Sihon for forgiveness in any way. He excitedly challenges Sihon to try his best to claim his head. An extremely angry Sihon finally says the words he's been aiming to say from the start of this conversation. He tells Jacksongord that he'll make him pay the price of his betrayal. Subscribe to watch more videos like these, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next part.